Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we're running through the fan Q&A where we answer Dolphins fans' questions, and it's nice to actually talk about a victory for once this season. Got a lot of interesting news stories for you here today, and I can't wait to get into. So let's start with the news. Let's get into this first news story. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Ravens-Dolphins discussed an Xavier Howard trade. Dolphins cornerback Xavier Howard's dissatisfaction with his contract led to him requesting a trade earlier this summer, and although the player and the team were able to work out a revised pact to keep Howard placated, Miami's 1-7 record in 2021 made him an obvious trade candidate in advance of last week's deadline. As the Ian reporter at NFL.com writes, the Ravens made a push to add Howard in an effort to bolster their secondary. There's some interesting stats here in this news story that I thought I would bring up for you guys here. Pro Football Focus has assigned Howard a below-average 46.2 coverage grade this season, a steep drop-off from his 89.6 mark a year ago. Now, this is an interesting story for a lot of different reasons, and I think the most interesting thing is the implications of the future. The Dolphins have some of the most cap space. They have a ton of cap space after this season. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with it, especially after this game. You know, they have Mike Gesicki up. Obviously, Xavier Howard wants a revised deal. Maybe he's going to be looking for something after this year as well. So the Dolphins have a lot of interesting moves to make, not to mention the fact that, we're 1-7 when we thought this team obviously had higher expectations for this team, and this team is underachieved all year in a lot of different areas, and this is obviously one of them. They've invested heavily into the secondary, and they've had their issues too this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with X. Obviously, they've had an interesting relationship with Xavier Howard over the years. This is, not the first time we've heard of the trade rumors. We've heard it in years past, in 2019, even after that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. How they look at the future of the franchise. Do they think this was kind of a year where it's okay, if we get this and this fixed, it has really nothing to do with the defense. I don't know how they view the year. Do they view this roster as a complete teardown, or just, a fix here and there, and I think things are different? In my opinion, I think it's more of, there's a few things wrong with this team. I don't think you got to tear it all the way down. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Xavier Howard, because I do think he is a cornerstone of this defense. I think he still is a very good player. And I do think he can help this team win games in the future. So, and the reason I brought up the PFF grade is I do think this is his worst year in quite a while. Obviously, when he got hurt, the year that led to him getting the big contract, before Brian Flores got here, that was a great year. 2019 obviously was kind of an injury-riddled year. I don't really count that. 2020 obviously had a bounce-back year and had a fantastic season. That's where he posted pretty much a 90 PFF grade. And in this year, I just feel like with some of the... I just don't feel like it's been his best year. I know he's made some plays here and there, but in coverage, I think he's been inconsistent a lot of the time. And I think Byron Jones actually is having a better season than him as of right now. But I think a lot of that has to do with some of the things that's going on around him. I think his lack of effort in zone coverage has been kind of a concern this year. But other than that, I think he still is a great player. And that shows up on Sundays. And I still think the Dolphins should keep those two together for as long as they can. Because I think Nick Needham, Byron Jones, and X are a great three group. I think these last 2 weeks, X has been kind of getting back to his old self, and we've seen that. And obviously with I can't remember, it was Brian Flores after the Bills game who said, on the strong defensive performance, so he said we kind of went back to some of the same things that we were doing in 2020, and I think that's helping X out a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins do with him. I mean, there's been a lot of rumors of that marriage obviously being broken up for a few years now. but I still think he can help this team win in the future. A lot of this team's issues has to do with the offensive line, and we're going to get into that later in the show. But I do think X is getting better, especially these last 2 weeks. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is dealing with a broken finger. There's not much else to say about this other than the headline. There's been no news story. He's been day-to-day for the Baltimore Ravens in the Thursday night game. I don't expect him to play. I think it'll be Jacoby Brissett, but we'll see. Hopefully he can play. That's really the only reason to watch this season this year, is to see to his development. Other than that, offensively it's pretty much a zero. Defensively, I think the two young safeties, Brandon Jones and Holland, and I think the game plan week to week, for the most part all year, has been pretty fantastic. I really like the game plan against the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans. But if Tua is hurt, it's like, obviously the Dolphins are 1,000 times more enjoyable to watch when he's hurt. Or, excuse me, not when he's hurt, when he's healthy. So hopefully he can come back and make this season a little bit more stomachable than it has been so far this year. I still think this team's going in, especially defensively, is going in the right direction. I said that a few weeks ago about the offense, but it just seems that this offense is just going to stay inconsistent the entire year. I think defensively they actually have something to build off of, and they have the last 2 weeks. And I love the aggressive nature that Brian has gotten back to, which we kind of lost earlier in the year, and I really don't know why we did. But I'm glad we've gotten back to that. But going back to Tua, hopefully he can play the rest of these games. Because if he's hurt and doesn't, let's say he plays 2 out of the 8 games that are left, then the Dolphins have to move on. I really don't see how you could look at the first 2 years of his career and think that you don't at least look into other options. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. I know a lot of people like to defend him, but I mean, facts are facts, ladies and gentlemen. These first 2 years so far have been up and down, to say the least. Like, to say the best, it's been up and down. I think he's headed in the right direction. He's definitely having a good second year, and he's definitely getting better. But if he can't stay healthy, then I don't know else to really say about it. Hopefully he can come back, though. I'm holding out hope for that. Because it's been fun to watch him get better. And hopefully he can prove all the doubters wrong for the rest of the year. Because I think he still can. But the way this offensive line is playing, I don't know. Let's get into the next news story. I thought this was weird. The Dolphins considered Adrian Peterson. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. I thought that was an interesting little story for you guys. There's not much to say about this story. He wouldn't help the run game. Nobody can help this run game. It's that bad. I mean, this offensive line is just atrocious. So it really wouldn't have mattered. And that's it for the news, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I think we covered it. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. I think there's a lot of interesting topics to get into in this Houston Texans game. And I want to start with the offense. And it really has to do with the future of this franchise. So let's get into the Dolphins-Houston game. The Dolphins win 17-9, and I want to start with the offense. And I want to talk about the future of this team. And I think this game kind of detailed a lot of the issues this team is going to have to fix in the future. This offensive line is just god-awful, okay? And I want to start there. And it's just bad. I mean, it's been inconsistent all year. I think Liam Eichenberg, who's been sort of a positive, and he's had a very weird rookie year. Against New England, he looked great. I thought last week in Buffalo, he looked pretty good. I thought he had a pretty solid game. This week, he played terrible. He's been up and down all year. I don't know what to really think of Liam Eichenberg at this point. Honestly, I really don't know what to think of him. Austin Jackson continues to just have one really bad play a game. Like, every game he has a bad play, whether it's a holding, whether he just lets his guy walk into the backfield. He's an absolute pretty much no-show when it comes to the run game. He hasn't helped at all. I don't know what the heck is going on with these tackles. I mean, from week to week, it's honestly either a disaster or it's decent. It's between those two things. I really don't know what this team is supposed to do offensively. It's been one-dimensional, to say all year it's been one-dimensional. For the last 5 years, this team hasn't had a consistent run game since the 2016 year with Jay Ajayi. And even then, it wasn't, I think it was a little, I don't know to really say, but that was the last time the Dolphins had a good run game and a decent offensive line, to say that, ever since. It's been 5 years of just bad, inconsistent offensive line play and bad offense, to be honest with you. They have to get this fixed. I don't know what they're going to do. They have to, in my opinion, I think either they change the GM, they fire Chris Grier, or there needs to be some kind of incentive. And I think they kind of have to fire Chris Grier after this year. The first thing he said when Brian Flores got here is we have to rebuild the trenches, and he's just failed to do that. And we cannot go on. And I really hope that there is some sort of, whoever gets the new GM job kind of understands that and focuses heavily on the offensive line this offseason, because I hope in free agency they spend as much money as they can on that offensive line, especially if Tua continues to get better. There's no way you put him through another year of that. I don't care if they do look at this as another rebuild. I hope they don't, because I think it's not. If they do and they keep Tua, they can't have the same offensive line. They still have to invest in it. And they have a ton of cap space to do so, and they need to invest in it. And they cannot go another year with another bad offensive line. Like I said, it's been 5 years since this team has had a good offensive line, since the Unicorns. It's time to stop, and it's time to get to a better offensive line. And like I said, especially if he plays good enough to keep him around for a third year. They can't, and whoever's the quarterback, to be honest with you, they can't go into that year without fixing the offensive line. That's what I got from this game. And again, I think this was just kind of the cherry on top of the cake, or the cherry on the sundae. That is just like, it's just really bad. I mean, the Dolphins' run game, especially, it's like it's kind of all come to kind of a head this year, where it's just awful. I mean, the run game is god awful. They not only do they need an offensive line, but they need a running back as well. So they have to completely revamp that side of the offense. I think there's a lot of really good young talent at the skill positions when you talk about the receivers. I think, Kirk Merritt, I think he needs to get more playing time. I think even though I think he had a drop in this game, he was open on a deep post, and Jacoby obviously missed him. But I really like him. I like him a lot. Matt Collins is great. Jalen Waddle has a very bright future. Devontae Parker, when he's healthy, is pretty good. There's a lot there to like. And obviously Mike Gesicki has looked fantastic. And that's another player that the Dolphins need to look into offensively that I think has earned a spot in the 2022 season for sure. Hopefully they retain him. I love watching Mike every week. And he's one of the, pretty much him and Waddle are the brightest spots when it comes to watching offensive football for this team. So really, that's all I have to say offensively. Yes, the game was god-awful when it comes to just turnovers. There was no run game against a bad Texans front. I think they have, if I'm not mistaken, one of the worst run defenses in terms of statistics. And the Dolphins, they looked like one of the best defenses in the NFL. Not only did they turn the ball over a lot, but they just couldn't move anybody up front. And in the pass game, there were times where I was like, it looked like Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware coming off the edge at times. And it's just like, what the heck is wrong with this offensive line? So there's not much else to say offensively. I thought Jacoby did not really, I don't even know. I actually don't think Jacoby played good. It was pretty much nothing. Like, there's really nothing positive, to talk about offensively in this game. To be honest with you. Jalen Waddle had 80 yards. Mike Gesicki had 50 yards. Jacoby Brissett was 28 for 43 for 244 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. It was just a bad day offensively. To be honest with you, that's the only thing I could take away from this game offensively was Mike Gesicki needs to be extended. This offensive line needs to be fixed before the 2022 season. Desperately bad. And Kirk Merritt needs to play more. That's pretty much all that I took away from this game. Offensively. Defensively, I loved the game plan. I loved how aggressive the game plan was, understanding that this offense isn't good enough to get us a victory. I love how Brian knew that we were going to have to make a few splash plays defensively and really went for it in this game defensively. And they played well. They executed pretty much they had one busted coverage and man coverage that Tyrod Taylor did not take advantage of, where he had Danny Amendola down the sideline. Nobody was on him. It's very hard. They just didn't line up right. And this really leads me to the comment that we had last week after the Bills game when, Brian was asked about the strong defensive performance and what really changed, and where he said, we went back to some of the same calls that we had in 2020. It just makes you wonder why they didn't do this earlier with this aggressive nature on defense and really confusing teams' protections and the quarterback with all the different fronts and all the different movements up front. This is the most we've seen the amoeba front all year, and they really stuck to it. And it was really a base of this defense, and to really confuse, obviously, Tyrod, and really the last 2 weeks with Josh Allen and the Houston Texans. And I think last week, if we would have just blitzed on some of those third and longs in that second half more, we would have. I don't know if we would have won the game, but it I don't know. Who knows what would have happened in that game? I just thought we kind of got a little bit too conservative in that second half. But I love that we're going back to what we were doing last year, and I think we're just more aggressive. I think that's the biggest difference. Is we're just blitzing more, we're using that amoeba front more, we're confusing. And Brandon Jones and Javon Holland, for being as young as they are, now I know Brandon, this is his second year in this defense, but when we do that, they're really good at it. They're both really good blitzers. They're both super athletic. And Javon is a sideline-to-sideline safety. He's perfect for this blitz defense, where you're not really compromised with him in the backfield like that. So it really fits the front. This defense is still young and fast in a lot of different areas. Nick Needham's has had a pretty dang good year. And Byron Jones is having a really good season as well. And X his season's starting to kind of go in the right direction with the last 2 weeks of the way we've called defenses. So I hope we continue to call defense like this, and I think we will. And it's fun to watch. It really, really is. Because this defense is going to have to make those big plays defensively, and that amoeba front leads to those big plays, whether it's a sack, a strip fumble, or it's an inaccurate pass, and it's an interception. That front really, and Brian coaches it well. They execute it well. They know really when to call it, when to drop out. It really helps the defense, and it really helps this team win games because it does put so much pressure on the opposing offense, and when that happens, it causes turnovers. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that game. So let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer Dolphins fans' questions. This is the last week I'm going to be doing the fan Q&A on this podcast. I'm going to actually be separating the two. I think I need to produce more content on this channel. The channel is kind of going in the wrong direction. This is the least successful year on this channel since I probably started, to be honest with you. So I definitely have to find ways to make better content, upload more. And I think that's one of the things I really want to do is kind of make the fan Q&A its own thing. So this will be the last week it's on the podcast. So it's kind of sad in a way. But that's how the fan Q&A started on this channel. It was its own separate thing. So let's get into this first question. The first question comes from the gamer. He says, What would be your thoughts on drafting Cj Verdel? I think he's a very high potential since he can do everything at a high level. I think Cj Verdel, the running back from Oregon. I think both of those running backs are really, really, really fun to watch. I haven't watched enough. I've seen some Oregon games. I haven't watched enough of him to make a definitive. I know the running back from Michigan State. I can't remember his name. I like him a lot, though. I need to watch him more to kind of have more of an educated opinion. But the running back for... Let me look this up really quick. I think his name is Kenneth... Is this Kenneth Walker? I don't know if he's eligible in the draft. Whoever it is. Whoever had the 5 touchdowns against Michigan. I haven't seen a performance like that from running back in a very long time. He's going to be a really, 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 really good player. I don't know if he is eligible to come out this year. Whatever the case may be, I'm not sure. I don't watch a ton of college football unless it's like before the draft. But I did watch that game and I thought, man, that guy, he's really good. And I haven't seen someone run that hard and have that kind of a rushing performance in a long time. But I have seen a little bit of Cj Verdel. But I think to answer your question, Gamer, I would like to watch a little bit more to kind of get a grasp on who are the better running backs coming out in the draft. This next question comes from Eric. He says, why is Albert Wilson still getting playing time, especially over Kirk Merritt, who I want to see more of? I think with Preston Williams coming back against Baltimore, hopefully we don't see any Albert Wilson. I hope we see more of Kirk, Mack, and Preston. Yes, because Albert Wilson, who I believe is the lowest graded receiver in the NFL right now, he's really bad, and he gives bad effort too, which you can tell his confidence is low. This next question, I don't know if it's bad effort. I think it's just more of a confidence thing. This next question comes from Curtis. He says, Brissett plays more than Tua. Do you agree that Tua is actually a backup because the best ability is availability? No, I don't agree with that. I think that's one of the... I mean, yes, it's awesome that... It's great that you're here, but if you're bad, then who cares? Like, yes, the best ability is availability when you're a good player. When you're not a good player, no. Tua is much better than Jacoby in a lot of different areas. He makes faster decisions. He's more accurate. Jacoby has like 3 throws a game where you're like, what the heck was that? I don't understand what's wrong with him. If he could just get that stuff cleaned up, he'd be a starter in the NFL. But he just is so inconsistent with his play. Not to mention the fact that, Jacoby likes to hold on to the ball. He doesn't make in-rhythm throws. He's always late on reads. He's just not a very good pocket passer. He doesn't do anything well in the pocket a lot of the time. He's a statue in the pocket. He doesn't move a lot unless he's trying to, scramble outside and make a throw downfield. He doesn't move a lot in the pocket. He's not stepping up. He's not, navigating his way through the pocket. You pretty much know where he is as a defense all the time, unless he's scrambling left or right. So Jacoby has a lot of issues that Tua is better at than him. So no, I don't think Jacoby's better than Tua. This next question comes from Curtis. He says, "Hey Skaggs, looking back on the Minka thing, do you think he sniffed out some BS or what? Since then, so many coaches, so little results. Thanks, man, you rock." Thank you, Curtis, for the nice words. No, I don't. I think Minka just gave up. To be honest with you, I don't think it had anything to do with the coaches. Brian Flores, and this is something that I hope he keeps his job after this. I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear that, but his defense is great. I love and I know some people are like, well, look at the stats; they're not that great this year. This offense has been god awful for most of the year. I mean, they can't stay on the field. This defense is on the field way too much. So I think that has a lot to do with it, not to mention the fact that some of the stuff hasn't been executed all that well early in the year. But, dude, he's had some great game plans this year, defensively. And I don't care what the heck the stats are. I'm being dead honest. Like, his game planning defensively, I absolutely adore. And I think it fits today's game. And hopefully they don't get rid of him. And, you could really tell after they won that game against Houston how happy the players were for him, and I still think some of that locker room stuff has definitely been overblown, at least from what I've seen from the players and press conferences, and just how the players react on the sideline. You can tell he still kept that building upbeat and positive, which I think is a testament to his leadership. Because most times, losing 7 games in a row, you don't see a sideline react like that. You don't see players, even the way that they all are in the press conferences. I like what Brian's built here, and I think if he can just get this offensive line figured out, whoever the next GM is who comes in here hopefully can figure that out, and get this offense going in the right direction. Because I don't think it's his fault. I think it would be smart for the Dolphins to keep him around, because I think he is still a really good head coach, and like I said, I like him, and I thought him and Josh have really done a great job defensively this season. This next question comes from TR3MC. He says, if it's me, Skaggs, is it me, Skaggs? But it's looking more and more like it's not the coaching so much, but the players themselves are the reason Miami's not winning more games with the poor tackling, penalties, fumbles, interceptions. I don't think the tackling's been poor at all. I think tackling's been pretty good. I know what you're talking about. With anytime we play zone coverage, it's really bad. That 3rd and 13 we gave up when they were backed up on their own goal line is unacceptable. But that wasn't bad tackling. That was just bad zone defense. I don't know what they were doing on that play. They let him catch it, like, right in front of him, and with all his momentum, and didn't really guard anything on that play. They really just didn't guard anything. I don't know what the heck they think they're doing. It's like, oh, we're just going to stand on the first down line. And that's basically what they did. Their zone coverage is awful. But I don't think the tackling's been bad. The penalties have been better. The fumbles have been awful. And often, honestly, it's just the offense that has been. They're just not good up front. I think that's where the most talent lacks for sure. This next question comes from but I think it does have more to do with the players, especially offensively. This next question comes from the Gamer55. He says, I know it's early, but getting Ryan Jensen and Jayon Brown in free agency would be a big dub. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. I like those two players a lot. I think Ryan Jensen brings a physicality. They need to get listen, I don't know what they need to do, but just revamp the entire offensive line. And I think the way to do that is bring in some veteran talent, just proven talent on the offensive line. This next question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, hey, Skaggs, why do the Dolphins play so far off the opposing players on 2nd and long and 3rd and long? Same type of prevent defense. I don't know how far towards the bottom of the league they are on preventing 3rd down conversions, but it's bad. Yeah, there were some 3rd downs that they gave up in this game that just anytime they play zone coverage or like a picket defense where they just guard the sticks, it just doesn't. It's really bad. I don't understand why they ever do it. One of the things that I can compare it to is what the New Orleans Saints do on 3rd down, especially 3rd and long situations. They stay aggressive. They don't go to a zone defense. They stay with that aggressive mindset and that aggressive package. Same thing with the Baltimore Ravens. They do the same thing. I wish we would do that, because I promise you, if we ran that amoeba front when they were backed up on their own goal line on that 3rd and long, they definitely wouldn't have picked up that 1st down. And you know what? One thing I would, at least if I was talking to Brian Flores, I would suggest to him, run that front and just bail out if you don't want to be aggressive right there. You don't have to blitz. You do that in 1st and 2nd down anyway, where you show that front and then you bail out. Continue that same thing on 3rd downs, 3rd and longs. Every time we went to 3rd and long, we go to a 3-man rush and we play conservative coverage. I just wish we would stick with the amoeba front, even on 3rd and long. I don't know if Brian Flores is just worried about giving up a big play or what it is, but I just wish we would stay with that aggressive mindset. So, what was the question, Casey? Well, sometimes we kind of, anytime I think this is kind of a tell in a weird way. I guess not really. But a lot of the time when we play off like that and we run the amoeba front on 1st and 2nd down, when we play kind of farther off, that's kind of a tell that we're going to drop back in coverage and not blitz. And sometimes we still blitz when we give that look. But for the most part, anytime we're running that kind of that crazy, creative front, and when we blitz with the amoeba front, we do pretty good. I mean, I feel like 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, it's a successful play for the defense. I just wish again, like what Baltimore does and New Orleans do, they kind of keep those aggressive defensive looks, even on third and longs. I hope we can continue to do that. This next question comes from Mark. He says we win, and I think that will fix some of those third and long conversions that teams should not be getting. This next question comes from Mark. He says we win the game against the Texans, no doubt. However, Brissett now has the same amount of wins as the starter, which to me says the quarterbacks are still hurting us. Both of them. I need a comment that said if our offensive linemen went to the NFC, they'll be stars. Is quarterback play and coaching is what's holding us back on this team. I don't know what you mean by maybe I misread that. He says I read an FB comment that said if our linemen went to the NFC, they'd all be stars. Well, that's not true. I don't know what does FP stand for. Is quarterback play and coaching, is that what's holding back our team? It's not coaching. It's the offensive line. We have no run game. We can't run the football. We're one-dimensional. That's why teams, and I feel like it obviously hurts the offensive line because teams just tee off on our tackles all the time. Nobody is scared of this offensive line when it comes to the run game. But you have to take that in consideration. This team is one-dimensional. And I'll give the coaching staff credit. It took them a little, like the first 3 or 4 weeks, I felt like we were kind of still trying to get a run game going. But the last few, we passed 70% of the time now. We don't run the ball. Jacoby had over 40 attempts. And I loved, in the game where even the commentators were like, the Dolphins still staying aggressive and trying to get points. And it's like, yeah, we can't run the ball. And that's why, we throw a lot of short passes, not only because the offensive line is bad, but we have to have some kind of an extension of the run game. You can't go 30 yards down the field 40 times in a game. You can't do that. And you need to stay in favorable down and distance. And the only way the Dolphins can do that is with the pass game. And it's just bad. It's really hurting this team, and it's hurting the offensive line even more than it already is bad. So that's what's holding back the team the most is the offensive line. This next question comes from the gamer. And one more thing I want to say about the offensive line. It's not like this is an average unit. This is a below average unit when it comes to the run game. One of the worst I have ever seen. This next question comes from the gamer. He says thoughts on how Jackson and Hunt played. I kind of want to go back and watch the game. I know Jackson gave up one sack or it was a pressure. I can't remember what it was, but I remember it in my mind, and it was awful. It was like a really bad play by him. Hunt, I really want to go back and watch all of his snaps of the year. He's been, from what I can remember, I can't remember him messing up too much. But when you're the only solid player on an offensive line, it's kind of hard. I would like to kind of go, I know that Eichenberg and Jesse Davis didn't play well. I know Austin Jackson had that one really bad play. I would like to, like I said, go back and watch and see how bad it actually was, if it was like okay or whatever the case may be. I know this, he's not good in the run game. I know that. But to answer your question, the gamer, I would like to kind of go back and watch to really evaluate. This next question comes to the gamer. He says, why did Liam struggle? I don't really know why he struggled. Because, like I said, it's just interesting because, like I pointed out, he's had really good games at that position. And that's why his rookie year has been so weird. Like, if you go back and look at the New England game, fantastic. He played really well. If you go back and look at the Buffalo game, when we went on the road to Buffalo, had a pretty decent game against a really good Bills defensive front. It wasn't terrible. We actually held up in pass protection pretty decently well for the most part. And it wasn't as bad. Listen, we performed way worse against the Texans than we did the Bills, which is weird. But yeah, he's had a really weird, odd, up and down year. I don't understand why this particular game, maybe he struggles with speed guys more than power guys, because Buffalo and New England, both their rushers are more power based. Houston's, their rushers are definitely athletes, speed rushers. Maybe that's what he struggles with, because he's definitely struggled with the speed in this game for sure. This next question comes from the gamer. He says, who would you pay big money for? I don't know why I can't read right now. He says, would you pay big money for Taran Armstead in free agency. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think he's a great player, great all-around player, physical tackle. I definitely would. This next question comes from Kevin. He says, why was Hunter Long inactive once again? That's been interesting. I don't know. I expected a lot more from him. Maybe I'm wrong. I loved his college, I don't want to say tape, like I actually sound like I know what I'm saying. I do. I like to believe I know what I'm saying, but I just feel like it sounds pretentious in a weird way. But his college football, like him coming out of college, I liked everything that I saw. I think he has a bright future in this league. I'm holding out hope for him, and we'll continue to see if he can at least come back this year and make an impact, if not next year make an impact. But I still think he has a bright future in the NFL. The next question comes from Curtis. He says, at this point, what coach and GM change would be prudent? If not, who do you... At this point, what coach and or GM change would be prudent? If not done, do you think Ross was / is meddling in the football decisions? I don't know at this point, because there have been so many, like the people who are reporting that Ross meddles have clearly lied about a lot of things. NBC Sports has been the biggest, ones pushing that narrative. And, people like Omar Kelly have disagreed with that. And I tend to go towards the beat writers when it comes to that. So I don't know really what to believe with the Stephen Ross stuff. But the GM thing, I think, is probably, it's time to move on from Chris Greer. I don't think I really need to see any more of this year to know that. We've seen 9 games so far this year, and again, his biggest flaw, which is this offensive line, he just can't. I don't understand the dude has put in a ton of resources towards it, and just clearly hasn't amounted to anything. This next question comes from the Gamer55. He says, thoughts on Kenneth Walker. That's we were just talking about him earlier in the show. Love him. I don't know if he's eligible to come out in the draft this year, but dude, I really, really like him a lot. I think he's going to be a really, really, really good player. Runs really hard. Runs with a passion that you see in great NFL running backs. He has a pretty good gear. He's got a lot of juice. He hits the hole hard. Runs with power, and can score from anywhere on the field. So I really like Kenneth Walker. Not to toot my own horn, but I've been pretty kind of dead on with these running backs. Najee Harris has kind of started off slow, but I remember really wanting J.K. Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor. We've seen how their careers have turned out. J.K. not so much with the injuries, but Jonathan Taylor, he looks fantastic. And that was a huge miss by the Dolphins, and clearly. And not that I think he would have made much of a difference, especially if the Dolphins would have kept the same offensive line. Jonathan Taylor, very talented player, but is running behind one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. And that's definitely he definitely would not have the same production if he was a Dolphin. So I want people to kind of pump the brakes on that one. In terms of his career would definitely look different with us. But anyway, the point is that this, It's rough to watch this offensive line. There's just no run game. It's just god awful. I feel bad for Myles Gaskin because I'm like, I don't know how he hasn't. And one of the other weird things is he took pretty much every carry in that game. Achman didn't touch the ball, but I think 3 or 4 times. And it blows my mind that he hasn't had like a severe injury so far. Like Gaskin has taken some hits this year, guys. Like some hits. And Gaskin, say what you will about him, he runs really hard. And I don't know how he had every tackle, especially in this game. It's dude, it's just hard to watch. He just gets crushed. I don't know. It's really hard to watch this run game right now. But Chris. It's interesting to see what Stephen Ross does. Let's just put it that way. I think it's definitely time to move on from Chris Greer and get someone else in here. And again, I don't want the mindset to be let's tear it all down, because I don't think that's the right thing to do. I really don't think. And again, this team has set itself up well. The 49ers suck this year, which is a God saving grace for them. And they have a ton of cap space, so they can make a lot of moves this upcoming offseason. to get the team. And again, I think the problems are pretty clear. It's not like, oh, what's wrong with this team? I think everybody with 2 eyeballs can figure out what the heck's wrong with this team. And it's not something that takes 3 years to fix. Just fix a unit, and this team looks a lot different. They need a running back and an offensive line. Go get it. Hopefully Tua plays well enough for us to feel confident going with him as the starter into the 2022 season. And I think, and I have a pretty good feeling that he will. He just needs to stay healthy. And I'm excited to see what he does against Baltimore at home. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I don't know. This one felt a little weird. I'm a little tired right now, but hopefully it came out okay. And I'll see you guys in the next one.